Dash. As a joke, I invited my neighbor to come with me on a road trip. It was Thursday, 6 in the morning. She said yes so quickly that she dropped her suitcase on her own foot. And it was not a cute, laughing kind of yes. It was not one of those playful, oh, why not, answers. It was a straight, clean, immediate yes, the kind of yes that sounded as if she had been waiting for days for me to be foolish enough to open that door. I was standing in front of my house in Querétaro, loading things into the back of my pickup, a backpack, a duffel bag, a cooler, a jacket, 2 thermoses of coffee, and a bag of sweet bread my sister had forced me to take because, according to her, nobody heals emotionally on gasoline alone. My name is Matthew Arriaga. I am 35 years old, and I design kitchens for restaurants. The plan was simple: drive alone to Oaxaca to inspect an old building a client wanted to turn into a cafe. 3 days on the road. Silence, music, work, and the perfect excuse not to answer messages from my family asking why I had not dated anyone in over a year. And then Paula appeared. She had been living next door for 5 months. Her house had a white facade, clay pots, and bougainvillea that looked happier than everyone else on our street. Paula Marquez was 33 years old. She taught elementary school, and she always looked like she was arriving somewhere 5 minutes late, with a smile that pretended she did not need help. I had seen her carry heavy water jugs by herself. I had seen her paint the fence alone. I had seen her change a tire while watching a tutorial on her phone, with an expression of professional hatred on her face. I greeted her. She greeted me. Sometimes we talked about small things, the water, the garbage, the heat, the neighbor who pruned his tree as if it had personally offended him. But lately, I had noticed something different about her. She had become quieter, as if her house was full of noise even though, from the outside, everything looked peaceful. That morning, she came out holding a cup of coffee. Her hair was loose. She wore sandals, denim shorts, and a light blouse. She had not dressed to impress anyone, and that was exactly the point. Some women draw attention when they get ready. Paula drew attention when it looked like she had not yet decided whether she wanted to face the day at all. Running away, she asked from her porch, or just loading half your life into that truck. Work trip. Oaxaca. What suffering? Poor thing. Yes. 3 days of road food, silence, and a hotel with a view of downtown. I'm thinking of filing a complaint. Paula walked closer to the sidewalk and looked into the truck bed. You're going alone? Yes. Weird, thank you. No, I mean, you'll be like one of those men who argues with the GPS. I thought someone would be supervising you. My navigator cancelled. That was a lie. There had never been a navigator. But the sentence slipped out easily, because sleep and Paula made me start playing before I realized what I was doing. She raised an eyebrow. How irresponsible. And then I made the joke that changed everything. Well, come with me then. You can personally correct my route. Paula did not laugh. She did not ask if I was serious. She did not say I was crazy. She just looked at me for 1 second, as if she was measuring whether the world had just handed her an exit without warning. Then she said, yes. The suitcase hit her foot. Yes, yes. Paula, I was joking. She nodded. I know. Then her smile became small. Almost sad. And that's exactly why I'm glad you said it. Before I could answer, her phone started ringing inside the house. She looked toward the door, not with irritation, but with exhaustion. The ringtone sounded again. Once. Twice. 3 times. Paula took a deep breath, went back inside quickly, and left the door open. I stayed on the sidewalk, shifting my weight from one foot to the other, with the strange feeling that I had touched a string I had not known existed. From outside, I heard her voice. Mom, I can't talk right now. Silence. Then she spoke more quietly. I'm not going to lunch. Another pause. Because I don't want to see Arturo. That name hung in the doorway like something I was not supposed to hear. Paula came out 30 seconds later. The cup was gone. In her hand was a blue backpack. Ready. Too ready. She looked at me as if she knew I had just understood more than I was allowed to. If there's still room, she said, I'll grab a jacket. That backpack was already packed. More or less. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have before 7 in the morning. Her phone vibrated again. This time, I saw the screen because she was holding it in her hand. Mom. Then another message appeared underneath. Don't make a scene. Arturo only wants to talk. Paula turned the screen off. The street was waking up. A woman was sweeping her sidewalk. A man walked past carrying bread. The sunlight was beginning to touch the rooftops. And my trip, which 5 minutes earlier had been nothing more than a work route, had just become something I could not name. Paula, I said carefully, if this is just about avoiding an uncomfortable lunch, I can wait. We can make up something. Say the truck broke down or... No, I don't need you to invent anything. Then tell me what you need. She looked at me. And that was when I saw what I had not noticed before. This was not just an impulse. This was a woman standing at the edge of a life everyone was trying to push her back into. I need to get into a car where nobody asks me whether I've already forgiven someone who never even apologized. I did not answer. Some sentences do not need commentary. They need space. So I opened the passenger door. Paula froze. Matteo, if I get in, you can get out whenever you want. If I change my mind halfway, we stop. If I cry, there are tissues in the glove compartment. If I don't want to talk, I'll turn on the music. And if I want to talk too much, then I'll turn the music down. For the first time that morning, she smiled for real. It was brief, but alive. You're strange. I've been told that by better women. I doubt that. She got into the truck. I closed the back, got behind the wheel, and drove away before logic had the chance to ruin everything. When we turned the corner, Paula looked into the side mirror. A white car had parked in front of her house. A man got out wearing an ironed shirt, carrying flowers, and the kind of confidence that belonged to someone who still believed he had the right to knock on that door. Paula stopped breathing. Is that Arturo? I asked. She nodded. The light was red. The white car remained behind us, getting farther away, but not far enough. My first instinct was to speed off the moment the light turned green. To run. To become some cheap highway hero. But that was not what Paula needed. So I asked, do you want me to keep driving? She looked at the light. Then at me. Then at the road that had not truly begun yet. Yes, she said softly. But not because I'm running from him. Then why? Paula adjusted her seat belt, held her backpack between her feet, and for the first time since I had known her, she stopped pretending everything was under control. Because I've spent months waiting for someone to ask me whether I wanted to leave. The light turned green. And this time, it was not a joke. When I pressed the gas, nobody said anything for the first 20 minutes. There was only the road leaving Querétaro behind us, the coffee trembling in the cup holder, and Paula staring out the window as if every kilometer we left behind removed a stone from her chest. I put on quiet music. Nothing dramatic. An old Spanish rock playlist my sister said I used to feel deep without going to therapy. Paula listened for a few seconds. Do you always drive to songs sung by men who don't know how to apologize? It's my favorite genre. That's obvious. That made me laugh, and the laugh changed something in her face. It did not make her happy exactly, but it pulled her out of the rigid state she had been in when she got into the truck. After the first toll booth, her phone vibrated again. She did not look at it. It vibrated again. And again. You can answer, I said. I don't want to. You can also turn it off. If I turn it off, they'll say I'm acting crazy. And if you leave it on, they'll keep calling until it feels like an emergency. So either way, nobody wins. Paula breathed out through her nose. My family thinks insisting is the same thing as loving. The sentence did not sound like a complaint. It sounded like a habit. We passed a truck loaded with vegetables. The sun climbed higher. The highway filled with sharp light and quick shadows. Paula opened the bag of sweet bread without asking permission. May I? You already took one. Then don't ask obvious questions. She took a concha, broke it in half, and handed me one piece. Eat. Sad men get sleepy behind the wheel. I'm not sad. You jokingly invited your neighbor on a work trip, and now you're driving to Oaxaca with her in silence. At the very least, you're interesting. That almost sounded like a compliment. Don't flatter yourself. She handed me half the concha. Our fingers barely touched. Nothing happened. And yet, something did. Paula looked out the window with the smallest smile, as if she had felt it too and decided not to make too much of it. Near the gas station before the road toward Puebla, we stopped to fill the tank. Paula went to the restroom. I stayed by the pump, stretching my back. Then I saw her stop outside the little store instead of going in. She was looking at her phone. I walked over slowly. Everything okay? She showed me the screen. A message from her mother. Arturo says he only wants to talk. I don't understand why you left with a man you barely know. Below it was another message. Your father is very upset. Paula turned the screen off. My father isn't even upset. My father is in San Luis for work and probably doesn't know anything. So your mother is using imaginary reinforcements. It's her specialty. She tried to smile, but her lips trembled. That was my first possible mistake. I could have told her Arturo was an idiot. I could have said her mother had no right. I could have become the kind of man who forms opinions too quickly about a story he barely understands. Instead, I asked, do you want to continue? Paula looked at me as if the question had reached her body before it reached her mind. Yes. Do you want to talk about Arturo? No. Do you want me to pretend nothing is happening? No. Then she leaned against the store wall under a sign advertising burnt coffee and discounted chips. I want 5 minutes where nobody decides what expression I'm supposed to have on my face. I nodded. 5 minutes. We bought bad coffee, peanuts, water, and chips Paula chose because, as she said, if we were going to make questionable decisions, at least they should come with chili. We stood beside the truck, watching trucks, families, candy sellers, and a man trying to convince everyone to buy phone chargers. After 4 minutes, Paula said, Arturo was my fiancé. I did not interrupt. I cancelled the wedding 6 months ago. That hit closer than I expected. How close was it? 22 days. The noise of the highway seemed to get louder. Paula looked down at the bag of chips as if the simplest explanation might be written there. It was not. There was no big scene, she said. I didn't find terrible messages. I didn't catch him in bed with anyone. Then one day, we were tasting the wedding menu, and he corrected the way I spoke to the waiter. She smiled without humor. He said I sounded too familiar. Too ordinary. I felt my jaw tighten. And then I heard it, she continued. Something I had spent years trying not to hear. What? That he didn't want a partner. He wanted a presentable version of me. I said nothing. The lesson was already written across her face. It did not need to be underlined. It was in her expression. In the packed backpack. In this trip she had accepted too quickly. Paula looked up at me. That's why I got in. Not because I didn't want to see him. No. She straightened. Because if I saw him today with flowers, and my mother crying on the phone, and everyone telling me that a decent woman doesn't leave like that, maybe I would have started explaining again something I had already decided. You were tired of explaining. I was tired of asking permission to feel safe. That silenced me. She noticed and raised an eyebrow. No clever comment. I don't want to ruin it. Strange, coming from you. I grow on the road. This time she laughed for real. A truck passed and honked. Paula jumped slightly, then laughed at herself. The moment became lighter. We needed that. We got back into the truck. The road opened ahead of us, hills, billboards advertising food, and a clean sky. Paula took off her sandals, pulled one leg up onto the seat, and asked me to lower the air conditioning. Do you always keep your truck this cold? It keeps me awake. And emotionally unavailable too. That too. At least you're honest. This road makes me vulnerable. Then be careful. There are still many hours ahead. The sentence sounded light, but her eyes did not. And for the first time, the thought of having many hours with Paula did not feel accidental. It felt dangerous in the good way. Closer to Puebla, her phone vibrated again. This time it was not her mother. It was Arturo. She did not answer. The call ended. Then a voice message arrived. Paula froze, staring at the screen. Do you want to listen to it? I asked. No. Her fingers did not move. Do you want me to listen? She looked at me quickly. Not to answer. Just so I'm not alone with it. She handed me the phone. I played the message. Arturo's voice filled the cabin. Controlled. Calm. Almost gentle. Paula, you're making this bigger than it is. Your mother told me you left with your neighbor. I don't know what you're trying to prove, but we can handle this like adults. I'll wait for you in Oaxaca if I have to. The air broke. Paula snatched the phone back and turned the screen off. How does he know about Oaxaca? I asked. He doesn't know why I'm going. But he knows you're going. Her face went pale. My mother. The road kept moving beneath us, but the shape of the trip changed. This was no longer just an improvised escape. Someone was trying to catch up to her. And Paula, with a voice firmer than her hands, said, "I'm not going back." "I know." "No, Matteo." She looked at me. "I need you to really know that. If he shows up, I don't want you deciding for me." "Then tell me what to do." She swallowed. "Drive. That's all. For now." I looked ahead, tightened my hands on the wheel, and kept driving. Because sometimes being with someone does not look like saving them. Sometimes it looks like respecting their silence while they gather the courage not to turn back. As we approached Puebla, Paula stopped checking her phone. That worried me more than if she had kept looking at it. When a person stops looking at the thing chasing them, it does not always mean they no longer care. Sometimes it means they are tired of being afraid. We stopped at a roadside diner because the gas station coffee was no longer enough to keep the morning afloat. There were plastic tables, salsa in reused bottles, the smell of fresh tortillas, and a television in the corner playing silent news. Paula ordered chilaquiles. I ordered huevos divorciados. She looked at me. How symbolic. It was a coincidence. Of course. We ate mostly in silence, but it was not the same heavy silence as before. This one was different. As if a small unnamed trust had sat down between us, holding a napkin. Then another message came. Paula read it and froze. What happened? She turned the phone toward me. It was from her mother. Arturo says he is going too. Don't make this harder. I felt the food turn to stone in my stomach. Paula placed the phone face down. I'm not going to run. Okay. I'm serious. I believe you. I don't want this to become some ridiculous chase where I look like a woman who doesn't know what she wants. Paula. Because I do know what I want. She looked at me with bright but dry eyes. I want to get to Oaxaca. I want to see the building you're going to inspect. I want to walk through a street where nobody knows me, where nobody asks why I didn't forgive him. I want one whole day where I don't have to justify my peace. I did not answer immediately. The waitress came over with more tortillas and, in half a second, read the situation the way women who have seen too many tense conversations in public places know how to do. More coffee. Paula sighed. Yes, please. When the waitress left, Paula laughed softly. Even she understands I need caffeine before committing emotional murder. Good strategy. What strategy? Coffee before murder. This time she truly laughed. And there, with salsa on the table, trucks outside the window, and her phone vibrating like a threat, I realized something inconvenient. I liked seeing her laugh. Not as a neighbor. Not as a random passenger. I liked it in that dangerous way, when you start memorizing details without permission. The curve of her smile. The way she wiped a drop of salsa with her thumb. The way she acted strong without losing her softness. We returned to the highway in the middle of the day. The sky changed. First came the clouds. Then the wind. Then a heavy rain, the kind that turns the road into a mirror and forces everyone to slow down. Paula tensed. Do you want us to stop? I asked. No, I just handle fear better when I know where it's coming from. The sentence stayed in the air. A truck passed us too closely. The gust shook the pickup. Paula gasped and grabbed my arm. It was not romantic. It was instinct. But a second later, She pulled her hand away. I did not say anything. I only slowed down. Sorry, she whispered. You're not bothering me. That wasn't what I was going to say. But it was what you needed to hear. She looked at me. The rain hit the windshield so hard that the world shrank to blurred lights, dark asphalt, and her hand resting near my forearm. Matteo. Yes. When you offered to let me throw my backpack into your truck, I didn't think you would be this calm. Is that good? I don't know. She almost smiled. It's confusing. I'm usually clumsier. I noticed. You once dropped a suitcase on your own foot. The tension loosened enough for us to breathe. An hour later, at a junction before continuing toward Oaxaca, traffic stopped. There had been a small landslide ahead. Nothing serious, but the National Guard was letting cars pass one lane at a time. Engines were turned off. People got out to stretch. Vendors appeared out of nowhere with water, sweets, and corn, as if the road itself had called them. Paula got out too. I followed, not standing too close. She leaned against the hood of the truck and looked at the mist-covered hills. If you hadn't invited me today as a joke, she said, I think I would have gone to that lunch. What would have happened? Arturo would have arrived with flowers. My mother would have cried. My aunt would have said a cancelled wedding doesn't get cancelled twice. I would have explained again what nobody wanted to understand. But you didn't go. She did not look at me. Because you said something stupid at exactly the right moment. My specialty. No. Her voice changed. Not just that. Before I could ask what she meant, a white car stopped 3 vehicles behind us. Paula saw it. So did I. Arturo got out. Light shut. Flowers already wilted from the road. The face of a man who had come to fix someone's decision as if it were a scheduling mistake. Paula stopped breathing. My body reacted before my mind did. I stepped toward her. She raised a hand, stopping me. Arturo walked toward us. Paula, he said, as if I did not exist. She straightened. How did you find us? Your mother was worried. My mother gave you my route. Because you're behaving like someone who needs help. The sentence made my blood boil, but Paula spoke first. No. I'm behaving like someone who finally stopped asking permission. Arturo looked at me. And who are you? Matteo, I said. The neighbor? Yes. He smiled without humor. How convenient. Paula stepped forward. Don't involve him in this. You leave with him on a trip and want me not to involve him? I left with myself. He is just driving. That hurt more than I expected. And it was right that it did. Because it was true. I was not the reason for her decision. I was only the space where she could finally hold on to it. Arturo lowered his voice. Your family is suffering. My family is uncomfortable. That is not the same thing. The rain was still falling, but softer now. Some drivers watched from a distance. Nobody came closer. Mexican highways have a strange way of turning into theaters without asking anyone's permission. Arturo held out the flowers. Get in my car. I'll take you back. We'll talk calmly. Paula looked at the flowers. Then at him. I don't want to go back. You're confused. No. I'm tired of you mistaking my peace for permission. Arturo's smile disappeared. You'll regret this. Paula swallowed. Maybe. But for once, it will be my regret. Not a life other people chose for me. Silence. The officer ahead began letting traffic through. Arturo looked at the line of cars, then at Paula, then at me. This won't last, he said. Paula did not answer. She simply opened the passenger door and got into the truck. I walked around to the driver's side. Before I closed the door, Arturo asked, "And what do you get out of this?" I looked at him. She gets to arrive where she said she wanted to go. That was all I gave him. I started the truck. After we had driven for a few minutes, Paula remained silent. Her hands gripped the backpack. Her eyes were fixed on the road ahead. Then she exhaled. "Thank you for not making yourself the hero." I almost did. But you didn't. The road opened again. Oaxaca was still far away, but something inside Paula had already arrived somewhere else. Then, without looking at me, she said, "When we get there, I don't want you staying in another hotel." I glanced at her. She kept looking ahead, red from exhaustion and courage. "I don't mean what you think," she added quickly. I didn't say anything. Your silence said plenty. My silence is learning manners. That gave her a nervous smile. I booked 2 rooms in the same hotel. One for me. The other. I don't know. So I could feel like I wasn't alone in the city if I changed my mind. Even before all this. She nodded. Before you invited me. I felt a small blow in my chest. Paula finally looked at me. I think a part of me already knew it wanted to leave. It was just waiting for some stupid sentence to give it permission to begin. And then I understood. My joke had not caused this journey. It had only opened a door she had been staring at for months. We arrived in Oaxaca at night. The city welcomed us with wet streets, yellow lights on stone walls, and that smell of earth, corn, and smoke that seemed to tell Paula, "Nobody here knows who you are. Breathe." The hotel was near the center. Small, with an inner courtyard, clay pots, and a fountain that sounded calmer than necessary. Paula checked in first. 2 rooms, she told the receptionist. Then she looked at me, as if she needed to make it clear that she was not running toward me. She was running back to herself. 2 rooms, I repeated. The receptionist handed us the keys without comment. Blessed man. We climbed a narrow staircase. Her room was across from mine. Paula stopped with the key in her hand. Thank you for bringing me. Thank you for not jumping out of the truck when I played sad old man music. She smiled, but then she trembled slightly. The adrenaline was leaving. And when adrenaline leaves, the body remains. Are you okay? I asked. No. The honesty came out clean. But I think today I did something right. You did. Paula leaned her back against her door. I was scared when I saw him on the road. I know. But I was even more scared when I realized I didn't want to go back anymore. I did not rush to comfort her. That was one of the things I was learning around her. Not every pain needs to be silenced. Sometimes it only needs someone to let it breathe. Then don't go back tonight, I said. Tomorrow you can decide the next kilometer. Paula lowered her gaze. The next kilometer, she repeated. Then she opened her door. Before going inside, she turned back. Mateo. Yes. If tomorrow I still want to walk through Oaxaca, will you come with me? Not as a rescue, I said. Not as a rescue. As company. She nodded and closed the door. I entered my room and barely slept. Not because of Arturo. Because of the road. Because of her. Because of the way she had said yes on the sidewalk. Because of her hand on my arm in the rain. Because of that sentence. I was just waiting for some stupid phrase to give me permission to begin. The next morning, when I went down to the courtyard, Paula was already there. Her hair was loose. She wore a light dress and held a cup of coffee. There were faint circles under her eyes and a fragile kind of peace on her face. You didn't leave, she said. I'm punctual when it comes to shared escapes. It's not an escape. I know. A pause. I know too. We had breakfast with sweet bread and hot chocolate. Then we slowly walked through the center and visited the building I had come to inspect. It was an old house with high ceilings, cracked walls, and a courtyard that looked abandoned by someone who still loved it. Paula stopped in the middle of the space and looked around. This could be beautiful. That's what I came to evaluate. No. You came to measure. I came to make sure you don't ruin it. So the inspection has begun. Someone has to do it. She pulled a notebook from her backpack. You brought a notebook. I'm a teacher. I always carry a way to correct the world. For a whole hour, Paula walked through the building with me, pointing out where she would place plants, where the light should fall, and where a long table would make people want to stay. She spoke not like someone running away, but like someone who had remembered she could still dream. And I liked seeing her that way. Too much. When we left, her phone vibrated again. She stopped. It was her mother. Paula did not answer. But this time, she did not turn the phone off either. She wrote, I'm okay. I'm not coming back today. I'm not going to see Arturo. When I want to talk to you, I'll call. I love you, but I need you to respect me. She showed me the message. That sounds very harsh. That sounds clear. I'm scared. Then send it scared. She sent it. Then she exhaled as if she had been carrying a heavy box for years. That evening, we had dinner in a small place where the table wobbled and the salsa gave Paula more courage than the entire trip had. She laughed more than she had during all the hours on the road. Not from nerves. At herself. At me. At the absurd life that could begin with a bad joke in front of a pickup truck. When we returned to the hotel, she stopped at my door. Tonight, I don't want to be alone with my thoughts. My heart began to beat harder. Paula. I'm not asking you for anything I won't be able to handle tomorrow. She swallowed. I just want to sit with you for a while. No Arturo. No mother. No explanations. I opened the door. We sat on the small balcony of my room. The city sounded below us. She rested her head on my shoulder, as if the journey had truly been long, not only in kilometers. When you invited me, she whispered, I thought it was a sign. It was stupidity. That too. And a joke. That too. She lifted her face. But it was the first time in months someone offered me a way out without demanding an explanation. I did not know what to say. Paula smiled. For once, don't say anything clever. I'm trying not to ruin the moment. Good. She kissed me softly. Not in a hurry. Not out of gratitude. Not as an escape. But like a woman who had finally chosen something because she wanted it, not because she had been pushed. We did not become a couple that night. It would be a lie to say that. But we returned to Querétaro 3 days later as different people. Paula did not go back to Arturo. Her family needed time to understand. Her mother cried, pressured her, got angry, and eventually started listening. Arturo brought flowers 2 more times. The third time, Paula did not even open the door. I was still her neighbor. But not only that anymore. First came coffee on the sidewalk. Then dinners for no reason. Then short trips to Bernal, San Miguel, and weekends in Puebla because Paula said I needed to learn how to rest without creating an itinerary. 6 months later, we returned to Oaxaca. This time, not running from anyone. The old building had become a cafe. There were wines in the courtyard, wooden tables, and one wall painted in exactly the shade of light Paula had suggested. See, she said. You didn't ruin it. Your approval is an honor. As it should be. A year later, on a Thursday at 6 in the morning, I was loading my pickup again. Paula came out of her house with a backpack. Where are you going? She asked. Work trip. Good Lajra. What terrible suffering. She looked at me with that smile that no longer pretended she needed nothing. Going alone? I opened the passenger door. Well, come with me. You can personally correct my route. Paula walked over, kissed me on the cheek, and said, Yes. This time, it did not sound like an emergency exit. It sounded like home. So what would you do if, as a joke, you invited your neighbor on a road trip and she said yes as if she had been waiting for exactly that? Has anyone ever opened a door for you at the exact moment you were gathering the courage to leave? Tell your story in the comments.